everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I thought I would do an eyeshadow palette collection video. Alright, so we'll start with ABH. That is the first brand in the list. If I go alphabetically, I have 3 palettes from ABH. I've never owned any of the other palettes. These are the only palettes that I've ever owned. First palette that I did get was the Jackie Aina palette, and I really do enjoy this palette. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think there's a lot of variety, there's depth, and I'm not gonna lie, I definitely prefer this side of the palette more, and then these 2 shades as opposed to the pinks and the purples. They're just not my favorite. In terms of the whole palette, I really still love Sponsored. I think it's still a beautiful shade and it still performs very well and is just absolutely stunning. And yeah, I can just do some really beautiful, more obviously neutral leaning looks over here, but that shade definitely makes it pop. And then these 2 are also extremely beautiful. So yeah, I would say this is probably, I mean, I actually like all 3 of these, but I don't know. This was always my favorite. I think the packaging is gorgeous as well. It's never, you know, it doesn't look trash or anything because it's not that, what is this? This like velvet packaging, which is absolutely horrendous and disgusting. So yeah, it's always looked good, and it's the oldest, and I think it's worn the best. It's held up to its potential, I would say. But anyway, that's the first one. Second one I got was this one. I actually bought this for my mom, and then she didn't really enjoy it because it had too many pinks in it and rosy tones, and she's much more of a neutral person, so she gave it back to me. And then I've been playing with it for about 1.5 years, I would say, maybe even 2 years at this point. And yeah, this is a beautiful, beautiful palette, and I thoroughly enjoy this palette too. I personally like every single shade in this palette. I know a lot of people don't like Soul, but I actually kind of like it. And yeah, I have never done a bad look with this palette. I think it's gorgeous, and I just think it's very easy to use if you want to just carry on working but still use some decent quality shadow. However, I will say the packaging is disgusting, and I don't know how people can keep theirs clean. Mine just looks horrendous. So moving on. And then we've got this one. This is the last palette that I bought. I bought this last year when it came out. This is the Nouveau palette. I bought this because I really loved how muted everything was. I really like the color story, and honestly the quality is just as good as these other 2. I've never tried any of their big palettes, and yeah, this was the last palette that I bought, and I'm really happy about it. And I didn't really care about the other palette that they came out with, but this one I couldn't pass up because of the color story. And it does have some special shades. I think this is pretty unique as well. It has like a similar vibe to Sponsored, but it's just like a little bit of a deeper tone to it, but it still has that flip. Like you have that sort of purpley, greeny flip, and then you've got the brown undertone. I just like those type of shades, but I also really think all of the shimmers are great quality, and the mattes are beautiful and easy to work with. The only shade I would say that I don't care for is Muse. It has a lot of fallout. It's very dark, and it also is a shimmer. So they could have just made that a matte. I think it would have been better, because the fact that it's a shimmer and it falls out, it just goes everywhere every time I use it, and it's not my favorite. But yeah, I don't mind this pop of purple, like lilac. I think some people didn't care for it, but I think it's nice to have a little bit of variety, and it makes the color story a little bit more interesting. So I do enjoy this. Okay, so next brand is Alter Ego. So they are obviously a US company, and they do a lot of dupe palettes. Now, if you're not familiar with where I am or who I am English. I'm also half American, but I live in Portugal, so I have to deal with customs and all that. So whenever I purchase anything from the UK, the US, most of the time I do get stuck in customs, and I have to pay an additional fee, as well as all the shipping and everything like that. So when I when I go and try a new brand, which I tried this brand last year, I quite often pick more than one product from the brand, simply because I am going to pay all of that shipping, the tax and everything like that. I feel like I usually make my basket size a little bit bigger than I would normally if it was just a local brand. So yes, I picked these 3 palettes up last year, obviously online, and the one that I was most intrigued by was the Artemis. So let's talk about this one. So I really wanted the Metropolis from Natasha Denona, and at the time it was discontinued, and then they brought it back, and then it was discontinued again. The first time it was discontinued, I was very gutted. I really wanted to pick it up, and obviously Alter Ego do palettes, and most of them are Natasha Denona. So this is supposed to be, I mean, the color story is very similar to the Metropolis. There's a little bit of differences. The layout is slightly different as well, but they did try to copy some of her cream formulas, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't think they do it the best. They're definitely not the same quality as Natasha Denona from what I've tried, but I really do enjoy this color story, and I don't know, I was so impressed by Alter Ego. I really, really enjoy them. I do feel like this palette in particular has a lot of repeating shades and is very, very warm tone, and I would much prefer to have some of these browns and oranges to not be repeated as much as they are, and maybe have something else in there, because it is all mid-tone in my opinion. Obviously you have some darker shades, but there are no lighter shades. And that's kind of how I was feeling, like these two are not that light, and for someone like me, I think it would have been nice to have a few lighter shades just to have that variety. You've only got one light shimmer shade, so it would have been nice to have another one, maybe a different color, because otherwise they are all very mid-tone. So that's kind of the cons of this palette. But in terms of the quality, I did say the cream to powder shadows aren't the best, but otherwise the actual quality of the shimmers, like the normal shimmers and the mattes, are very, very good. And Alter Ego is very affordable, so I actually was very impressed when I did receive this. And then I also, obviously I wanted to make it count, so I did pick up two other palettes at the same time. Let's start with the Canyon. These are also supposed to be dupes of the Natasha Denona palette. So the Canyon is a dupe of the Bronze palette, I believe, and it is absolutely stunning. When I picked this up, I kind of went off a lot of my warm tones, but I couldn't deny that I really love this palette, and I really love this shade. I think it's so interesting, and again, it's one of these, I'm just gonna, they all look the same, these shades, but I just find it so interesting. Obviously it's a brown, but it has some flip of purple to it in the right light. It's just beautiful. And then obviously these tones are very, very rich. They blend really nicely, but again, this is a very I would say mid-tone warm palette. There aren't a lot, I mean there's no light shades in here. They're all sort of one note, which obviously you got these two darker shades, but other than that, and maybe this one, but there's not a huge variety of tones, and I feel like I really like it when a palette has different variety of tones. So again, I would have preferred maybe one or two lighter shades in here just to make it that more interesting. However, I can't fault the quality. The quality is amazing, so I really do like that. And then I've got the Shadow Kiss, which I think is my favorite out of the three. It was my favorite palette for 2022. And it kind of shocked me because it is all cool tone, which I was really into cool tones last year, and I still like cool tones, and I still think this palette is amazing. But I think what shocked me the most was I just kept grabbing this shade, for instance, Risk, which is not even an interesting shade. I don't even know what color that is. It's not a gray. I mean, it's kind of a gray taupey. I don't know. It's just a very boring matte shade, but I couldn't stop reaching for it. And there was some other shades in here that I just kept wanting to reach for. And I don't really have these shades in my collection, and maybe that is the reason they were interesting to me, even though it's not the most interesting palette. It is supposed to be a dupe for the Glam palette from Natasha Denona, and I've never tried her palette, but I just think this is so stunning, and the formula is amazing. There are no cream to shadows in this one or the Canyon. The only cream to shadows are in the Metropolis, so maybe that's why I prefer these more, because those shades are a little bit of a duds. But yeah, I just think this is just so beautiful and cohesive, and you can make such gorgeous glamorous looks with this, but also keep it very everyday friendly. So I don't know, I've just, as boring as it looks, I've really enjoyed it. So I would say, yeah, Alter Ego is probably one of my favorite brands that I've tried recently, and I guess maybe all time that I have, because A, the price is so good, the formula is so good, and I don't know if I can really give them credit for like the color stories, because they are obviously dupes. So potentially not, but I do like these color stories. So credit to Natasha Denona. But anyway, I really do like Alter Ego. So those are the only 3 palettes I have, and I don't really see any other palettes that I want to get from Alter Ego unless they come out with some new ones. But lately I haven't really seen anything interesting from them. Okay, so next up is Beauty Bay. So this collection from the brand has recently increased quite a bit. For the longest time, I only had the Book of Magic palette, which was my favorite palette for a long time and still is one of my favorite palettes. But then in Christmas, I got all of these. So let's talk about the Book of Magic first, because I have, I think, a little bit more to say about it, just simply because I know it more. So obviously it's limited edition. Mine obviously, that's started to scratch off. You can see how much I have loved this palette. And I have used it quite a lot. I have quite a bit of pans in here. I think this is probably one of the palettes that I have the most pans in. I do find that they're pan sizes are pretty shallow and they're pretty easy to hit pan on, so it's not too hard. But in terms of color story, when I bought this, I thought it was unique to my collection, and it was, and in some ways it still is. I don't think I have any other palette that has, you know, the neutrals and then the purples and the blues and the greens. I don't think I have anything that matches this. Obviously, since they did release the Book of Magic, they've come out with several more releases that are very, very stunning and beautiful. But I just did not want to pick up any of them. I was so happy with this one, and I just never picked up any of the others. But I just think it's beautiful. I mean, you would think that this is my favorite shade because it is similar to all these ones that I've swatched. And maybe it is, but I haven't hit pan on it. I don't think I have a favorite shade in here, to be honest. There's not one standout shade. I think they're all beautiful. And I think that's why I like this palette. Everything is good in here, and it looks beautiful. And I don't think I've ever done a look where I haven't been wowed by the quality. So yeah. Sadly, obviously, this is discontinued. It would be nice if they just kept this around because it is so beautiful, but I'm glad I picked it up when I could. All right, moving on to these. So I actually asked, Beauty Bay does a lot of bundles for their own palettes, and I did ask to get these 2 for Christmas from my partner, but at the same time he went and bought these 3, which I don't think he realized at the time these 2 are just minis of these 2, but that's beside the point. So let's talk about, I guess, the big ones. Yeah, okay, let's talk about this one first. So since they're still really relatively new to me, I actually have this in my Shop My Stash doing a no pan left behind for this one. I've only used it once so far. So I still have yet to use all of the shades, but I just think this is so beautiful, and I'm pleasantly surprised that, you know, even though it's so huge, I don't know, I don't mind how big it is. I'm quite pleased with it. I thought it'd be really daunting to have this, but it's not so far. And there's just so much variety in here. I never picked up the Wilderness palette, and this has a lot of the same shades as the Wilderness or similar vibes to it. I just never was that keen on the Wilderness, which I know is a lot of people's favorite palette from Beauty Bay. But I do think because I missed out on that one and I have this one, I don't really quite have that feeling that I did miss out on anything. I've only done one look, like I said. It was in my my recent Get Ready With Me. So far I think the quality is the same as what I know from Beauty Bay. Beauty Bay does have one of my favorite, if not my favorite, formulas. And again, I do think the pans are probably going to be shallow. So I'm just really looking forward to when this palette is more loved. But I really wanted this one because I do like my greens and my neutrals. And yeah, I just wanted to try it out. And then obviously this one comes with the bundle. And this is the Midnight palette. This one I have also just used the once. I haven't done no pan left behind on this yet, but I will be doing that eventually. This one, I did notice that some of these shimmers, like this one in particular, you can see I actually did use that in one of my looks. In the pan, before I swatched it, in the pan it looked much lighter. And then as soon as I swatched it, it got really dark like that. So I think I might have some issues with some of these darker shimmers. They might not be my favorite in terms of just the tone and the color and the depth. I do think that this one has some similar shades to the Book of Magic, so it's not as necessary to have in my collection, but I still am happy to have it. And yeah, I don't know, I haven't played around with it enough to really say what I really feel about it. So far I think the Earthly had a nicer quality texture, but it might just be because I tried different shades from it. And then I've got these three. So like I said, these two are going to be just mini dupes of those bigger ones. I haven't done anything with them. I don't know if I'll keep these or if I will pass them along. I think they're, in some ways they're good to have, but they obviously are duplicates. And duplicated shades, so I don't know if I need that. But then I have the berries. I wasn't interested in the big berries, but he did give me the small berries, and when I received it, I was like, okay. Well, again, not super keen, but I do think looking at it more closely, it is absolutely stunning. The only shade I've tried so far is this shade because it is my focus shade for this month. I do a little side hustle panning project for myself, and every month I pick a new shade to work on. That starts with the letter of that month's, the first letter of that month. So this is Macarons from March, so that's what I'm working on, and I actually did a really fun, vibrant look yesterday with it, but I haven't tried anything else, but I'm actually excited to. I think the thing was, I wasn't excited to use this palette because I have a lot of these shades in other palettes that you'll see. However, it's Beauty Bay. I can't deny the formula, the quality. It's just so stunning. So yeah, who am I to say no to this? So I actually am I'm pleased that I have this. I actually am, now that I have used just the one shade so far, but I just looked at it a little bit more, and I do plan to use obviously more of the shades and get a better feeling of it. Alright, I just realized I have this one from Beauty Bay as well. I always forget that this is a Beauty Bay palette, but I do like it. So just gonna sneak this in here. This is very it's interesting for me because this is more of a companion palette. I picked this up because I don't feel like I have a lot of these shades in my entire collection, and because it's the Beauty Bay formula, and it was also like £5. I was like, yes, let me grab it when I did one of my hauls last year, and I'm so happy I did because honestly these shades are absolutely stunning. I like that you have the mattes because I really don't have a lot of mattes this shade, and then obviously you get 3 shimmers that are the typical Beauty Bay shimmers. So I feel like not many people spoke about this palette, but it was just so beautiful, and I don't know, I just really enjoy it. So just thought I'd sneak it in here because I've just realized I forgot to talk about it. But yeah, look at those. Those are so stunning, really stunning, and yeah, everything performs really well. Alright, next up I have a palette from Bella Pierre. This is the only little palette that I have from them. I did pick this up in a beauty box. This is a glitter shade, and then you've got 2 shimmers and 1 matte. To be honest, it actually is really nice quality. You could get away, which one? This one. This one I can get away with using as obviously inner corner highlight, but a little bit of a highlight on the cheekbones is quite blinding, but it is still beautiful. This glitter is actually stunning. I mean, it's kind of scary to look at because it's just like really there, but I do actually like this palette. I haven't used it nearly enough, but it's just a small little palette, and I think it's great for traveling. I've never had any issues with it, and I do think, yeah, I kind of think it's kind of stunning. So I don't mind this. I've never tried any other, obviously, eyeshadow from Bella Pierre, so I don't know what the rest of the sort of collection is like, but to be honest, I don't mind having this. Alright, next up I've got BH Cosmetics. So obviously I've only just got their older eyeshadow palettes. I haven't tried any of their newer palettes, and I don't know if I really have any interest in trying any of the new ones until I see something that obviously interests me. And you know, obviously the hype from BH Cosmetics has kind of fallen off the cliff, but let's start with this one. This is the first one that I picked up. This is the Chilling in Chicago. Just realized that I forgot one. Okay, so I've got 4 Yeah, but let's start with the Chilling in Chicago. So Chilling in Chicago, I don't recall why I picked this one over all of the rest that they had at the time, but I think it was just because I really liked these shades. Just move this. But yeah, as you can see, I did have it in a project. I hit pan, and I think I've hit pan in this one as well. I've got 2 pans in here. This quality is absolutely gorgeous. I know it's very reflective, and it's sometimes hard to know the tone of the shade because of this packaging, which is kind of annoying, but also makes it kind of beautiful as well. But it makes it a little bit hard to know exactly what these colors are, if you know what I mean, until you swatch them and start using them. But I really, really enjoy this palette. I think the quality is stunning. And for a long time, this was obviously my favorite BH Cosmetics palette. It was the only one I had for a while, but it was like, oh my gosh, I know why everyone's talking about this, this brand. The formula is great. And yeah, I do think that it's up there for me in terms of like Beauty Bay quality. It is one of the formulas that I enjoy the most. Okay, next up, I've got this one, Summer in Saint-Tropez. So this was added to my basket when I was doing an order. I think it was from, I think it was a Beauty Bay order. I'm not entirely sure. It was a couple of years ago now, and I could add this to my basket and it only was going to cost me £5. I was like, yeah, okay, why not? And then I never touched it for like a year or a year and a half. I was absolutely crazy because I was adamant that I wasn't going to enjoy it because I was really thrown off by this quad down here. I just didn't enjoy those shades just looking at it. And to be fair, I still feel that way. I still don't enjoy those shades, but you know, you can see I have a pan in this shade, and actually it's a really fun shade, and I just hit pan on that recently. But all the rest of these shades are absolutely stunning. And you just can't deny the quality of BH Cosmetics in this formula. Don't know about their new formula, but this is just stunning. And if you can get past the actual color story, it is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I think Coastline is probably my favorite in this palette. And again, it's one of these shades that flips, but it has more of a greeny yellow, and then it has a little bit of the taupey brown underneath, but it's just a lighter tone to these other ones. But you can see like kind of what I like. I don't know, I'm pretty basic like that. But to be fair, all of these shimmers are absolutely stunning, and the mattes perform really well. And I've used every shade. I mean, I've done No Pan Left Behind, so I do know this palette pretty well. All right, then I was eyeing these up for a good 2 years before I took the plunge and I bought them. And I bought them at the same time. And I think I was on like a buying spree because I bought these and I bought a bunch of other things at the same time. And it took me a while to actually use these and do a No Pan Left Behind. To be fair, I still don't know which one I like the best out of these two because they're so different. So obviously you've got the Avocado Toast, which is very green. But you do have these beautiful pinks, and this shade over here, Expensive, is just amazing. And I never expected this shade to be in this palette, so I just thought that was pretty cool. I don't know, it's just absolutely gorgeous shade. So you have these gorgeous greens. Obviously you have the browns. Mine's a little scratched up because my son grabbed it and he digged his thumb in there. But yeah, I really enjoyed this palette. I just can't tell you for sure. I don't think it's my favorite, to be honest. I feel something just tells me it's not. This is a nice shade too. I don't know what it is about it, but I think it's beautiful, and it actually surprised me, but I don't think it's my favorite. And then I've got the Blueberry Muffin, which is beautiful. It's cool tone. So I only really like this when I obviously want to do a cool tone look. I was worried about buying this because of how deep and dark these tones are over there. And I thought that it was going to be a very one-tone palette in terms of you can only really do blues or periwinkle shades, like looks, but it's not. I do find it is a companion palette more than anything for me because I like to dip into other shades when I use this, or I dip into this to use these beautiful inner corners, or the pop of blues or periwinkles. In terms of using the palette in its entirety for one look, obviously I can do that, but it's not my preference. So I think for me, as much as I think it's beautiful, and I really like this shade Yummy, I think it's gorgeous. Oh, that wasn't a very good think this is a gorgeous shade. Yeah, they're all like, you can see what I like. I do think this palette is beautiful, but I don't think it's my favorite. Okay, so next up is a brand called Cella, and this one I received in a beauty box a couple years ago. This is the La Vie Neutral eyeshadow palette, and it is a very simple little quad. I do like it. I have a pan in this shade. To be honest, the quality is not that bad in this, and then the mattes are perform pretty well, so it's a good, again, just travel palette. Throw in the bag, don't need to think about what kind of looks you're going to do, because it is very very simple and easy to use, and I don't mind it, to be honest, so that's why I've kept it around. Alright, and now we're on to Colourpop, and Colourpop is by far the brand that I have the most palettes. I think it's simply because, again, when I was living in the UK, as well as living here, I was bulk buying, because you have to ship, you know, this is from the US, ships to UK. UK wasn't so bad, it never got stuck in customs, or never, you know, I would have to pay additional shipping, but now they do free shipping if you spend a certain amount, or they always have promotional shipping options available. But since moving to Portugal, I have kind of I have still bought from Colourpop, but it hasn't been as much because I simply have too much, for one thing, and also the import was just so expensive, it was getting too much. So, but I think that's why, and also a lot of the times I picked up their bundles where you get like, I don't know, 5-6 eyeshadow palettes all in one bundle, which is absolutely crazy. So my collection of Colourpop grew quite a lot between 2020 and 2022. So yeah, I do think this next year, I don't plan on buying any more Colourpop unless something comes out that just wows me. I don't think I have an interest in it as much as I did, which I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's hard to keep up with all of their releases, and I think they all just recycle their shades anyway, so at this point I think I have a really good variety of all the shades that I possibly could need from them, with their formula. And I don't think their formula is my favorite at the end of the day. I think it's good for the price, but again, it's not cheap for me because I have to pay for the shipping sometimes, or I have to pay for the import tax. But anyway, let's get into everything. I think I'm going to start from the start. I'm going to go through the first palettes that I got, if I can recall. Alright, so the first ever palette I got was the Miss Bliss, and I'm so happy I did. I think this is by far one of my favorite palettes from Colourpop, if not my favorite. It is very simple, but I do really love the peachy tones in this. I don't mind these pinks. I think Chakra To Me is really beautiful. It honestly saddens me because I do think the formula of this is going. It's not as beautiful as it once was, but it obviously, because it's like a 2.5-year-old palette at this point, but I just don't think the shimmers are as metallic as they used to be. Still very beautiful, and I'm thinking with all of my older Colourpop palettes, I'm going to try to put some additional love into them this year, because I think at the end of the year, or maybe even sooner, I might have to go through and declutter some of them because of the formula changes that I'm starting to see. But I do think this is one of my favorites. It's a shame because this one doesn't really close anymore. It kind of warped a little bit, and I think that's another reason why the quality is going in this. Alright, so next up, I did pick up one of their Vaults. I got this for Christmas, I think Christmas of 2020, I think it was. And my partner got the Vault where you get 6 of their 9 pans. I think this was the original Vault. So some of these I didn't really care to have, but I wanted the Vault and I wanted to try more from Colourpop. So I got It's My Pleasure, obviously. I do like this palette. It was one of my favorites. I don't think it's one of my favorites now. I just think right now it has some of the shades that I really enjoy. But again, I think it's getting old. And I know that Lainey was saying the exact same thing of her palette because she's working on this. She was working on it for her Project Level Up palette. They do still have beautiful shades in here, I'm not gonna lie, and the tones are absolutely stunning. But I think because at the time when I got this, I didn't really have any palette like it, and now I have these shades over and over again. I'm finding it less special, but I do really like Mr. Sandman. I think that's gorgeous. I used to like Earthshine quite a bit. I still think it's nice, but I don't think it's my favorite. I'm not keen on Chiclet. I don't really like these two. Actually, this shade. I quite like this shade, Pretty Cruel. I don't mind it, but this shade is not my favorite. If they had, I think just feel like it's a little too blue tone. I think they should have had something a little bit different in there to just make it perfect. But yeah. There's that one. Then I got Main Squeeze, obviously. This one I tend to always love. I always neglect it, but whenever I use it, I really love it. I don't feel like the quality is going in this one yet either, so really enjoy that one. Then I've got Just My Luck, which I have used quite a bit. I do enjoy this palette a lot. I really love Mary Jane and Olive You. Obviously I have a pan in there, so I did grow to appreciate it. And I think the problem with this palette is, again, I have a lot of these colors now in other palettes, so it does get neglected a little bit. And it has become a little less unique, but definitely these two shades I would say are still unique in my collection. And then I've got Blue Moon, which I'm trying to hit pan in. I'm failing now. I want to hit pan in this shade right here, little Billie Jean, but yeah, I'm struggling. Again, this was very unique in my collection. I didn't have a lot of blue shades when I picked it up, and to be fair, I still really enjoy it. I don't think the quality is going in this one. I still think it's very nice. I still think it's decent. Let me look at Tide Pool. I did always have an issue with some of the, yeah, I think the quality is fine actually in this one. I did have an issue with Fine China. Every time I used it, it was quite patchy on the lid, so I never really liked that, but I think it's because it's just a blue formulated shade, and maybe they just didn't do a good job at it. But I do enjoy this palette. Then I've got the Honey, which is my current project level up. And I'm failing in this one. I already have a pan, but I need to hit three pans in this for my project. I have enjoyed this. I do like it a lot, but I am getting sick of it. But as an actual palette itself, the formula is fine. It's not going bad at all. And yeah, the shades still perform great. So no complaints there. And then I've got the Orange You Glad, which I've always thought was so stunning, but I always struggled to put looks together with it because it was just so orange. But I do enjoy this. I think it's pretty, and I just rolled in this shade for my pan nose eyeshadows, so hopefully I can get a pan in here and have it more loved. Alright, then I picked up the Mint V because I didn't have any mint shades and I thought this was really interesting, and I really have always loved this, and I have 2 pans in here, and yeah, I think this is a beautiful color story. Whenever I do use this, and actually the first time I even started using this, I did notice that the shimmers were much more flaky than I had in my other ColourPop palettes. So in terms of formula wise, this wasn't my favorite, but I really loved these shimmers. I just thought they were so beautiful, and I still do. I don't really have many mints anymore. Let me just see. Yeah, I think the formula is still fine. I'm just getting worried because they're all old. You see, that doesn't actually really pack a punch. Let me do this one. Yeah, they're becoming a little lackluster. I'm not gonna lie. So that is a shame. So I'm gonna try to get as much love onto those as possible this year. All right, then I want to say I picked up these two. It's a little bit blurry because I did buy a ton of makeup in 2021, and I think I picked these up in 2021. So we've got the Wild Child. They came in a duo, so that's why they came together. I picked this up because so many people love this, and then when I did start using it, I was like, oh no, I don't like it, because I felt like it was too dark. I felt like there was no light shades for me. It was far too dark for me. However, in the last couple of years, I have grown to really appreciate it, and I think the quality in this is what everyone calls like ColourPop, like the great quality. And I'm realizing a lot of my palettes don't have that great quality. Some of them have the good quality, some of them have the poor quality. This is the tip of the top quality from ColourPop. It might not be the same for everyone, but for me, the mattes in here outshine any other mattes that I have in my ColourPop palettes, and the shimmers are absolutely stunning. Like this matte, Usually mattes take me a really long time for ColourPop because they're very hard pressed. They're pigmented, but they're very hard pressed, and you just kind of like have to dig in. This was so fluffy, so powdery, but not in a bad way. It wasn't, there was no like, not kick-uppy or anything. It was just so gorgeous. And for me, that made it kind of that more special. And I actually appreciate this palette a lot more than I once did. And then I've got the Wine and Only, which I've always liked. Ever since I tried it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I've been trying to hit pan in this shade for like a year and I still haven't. This is one of the mattes that I'm talking about where it's so hard pressed, but it's super pigmented. So you don't need a lot of product to get what you want, but it's like almost impossible to hit pan on. It was gonna just take me forever. But these shades are just so stunning, I can't deny. And I think, yeah, the quality is still very good in this, because I would expect it to be, because they're slightly newer palettes than those original ones that I showed you. But yeah, I think this is just an outstanding palette, and it's so rich and beautiful and gorgeous. And yeah, when I say I don't like dark, deep tones, when it comes to things like this, I can get by this. These are dark and rich, but they're so beautiful. So I don't mind it when they're easy to work with and they're gorgeous. All right, moving on. I do think I got these next, although I might be wrong. So I did pick up the Baby Got Peach bundle and the Lilac You A Lot bundle. So they came with a blush and some lip oils and whatnot. But I, obviously wanted the palettes, and I got the palettes. So let's start with the baby. Actually, no. These are going to look different, just FYI, because I did do a video where I rearranged a lot of my palettes a few months ago, and I did swap out a lot of shades from these two because I was neglecting them, and also from the Whatever palette, which I will show you in a moment, and the Sweet Talk palette. Actually, let's look at all four of them together. I did get these in a bundle along with these two, but let's look at all four of these together because they all have shades from each other, and I think it would be easier if I just go through them together. So I've got the Baby Got Peach, which I think for me, the way it looks now is ideal, and I just love it. And I just did a No Pan Left Behind on it, and I think I'm in love with this color story. So you can see I've got shades obviously from the Lilac You A Lot, and I've got shades from these two palettes as well as the Baby Got Peach in here. So it's a mixture of all four, and I think it works so well. I love it. It's got the light that I want, it's got the mid-tones, and then the deeps, and I just think it actually just works. This one, on the other hand, I'm not entirely sure. I think this one became a little bit blah, because to make this one look so good, I did pull a shade from here, and then this ended up with two of these shades, which are very close together. Obviously this is a shimmer and this is a matte, but I'm not as in love with this color story. I've also not tried it yet since I rearranged it, so I don't know if it works to, if I can make a cohesive look with it. I have a feeling I probably won't be able to. It's going to be very peachy and light, but there is that depth that I could do, but then you've got I don't know. I'm a little bit more iffy about this one. I haven't done No Pan Left Behind with this one either, so I'm not sure, but I did rearrange that. I always liked the Lilac You A Lot, but I felt it was very monochromatic, obviously, as a lot of their 9 pans are. And I felt the same with the Baby Got Peach, so I just wanted to rearrange them a little bit. And then the reason I picked these two to help rearrange them is these two I've never really had a lot of inspiration for. When I picked up the bundle that came with all four of these, right? Again, a bundle, I shouldn't have, but I did. And out of these four, these two I like on their own. I don't think they need changing, but these two I did. So for the Whatever, I did do a No Pan Left Behind when it was in its original layout, and then I did a No Pan Left Behind when it was in this layout. And I much prefer this layout. I think it's really, really beautiful. And again, you've got the rich that you need, but then you've got some interesting tones. I don't know, I just think it kind of works. So I do think that one turned out great. This one I have yet to try Again, I think this one and maybe this one, they got my least favorite shades in them, but it might just be the way I laid it out. Maybe I need to do the layout a little bit differently, but I think there's a lot of repeating shades in here. So when I do pull this for a No Pan Left Behind, I think I'm going to not be that interested in it. So again, what I might want to do is actually go to my older palettes and maybe start rearranging them and make, I don't know, more interesting palettes in every palette that I have that I'm neglecting. So long story short, these are all changed, but I do like them. I mean, I definitely like the Baby Cop Peach and the Whatever more than anything right now because I rearranged them. And these two I've yet to really fully play with. And then these two remaining that were in that full bundle, I'll start with the Flutterby. So this one is really beautiful. It's quite romantic. You've got the mauves in here, and I can't deny that the shades in here are very beautiful. It's not my favorite color story, I'm not gonna lie, but I do enjoy it. So there's that. And then there's the California Love, which this was the most surprising to me when I got the bundle because I didn't really know anything about this palette. No one really spoke about it at the time, but I love this palette and I love this shade. I think this shade is what, Diego, yeah, love this shade. I think it's absolutely stunning, stunning shade, and this has a really nice formula. I think this is probably the good to great formula as well that I know from Colourpop, so yeah, thoroughly enjoy this palette. All right, and then moving on to my last palettes. These are my newest palettes from Colourpop. I think I went about a year without buying anything, and then I went and got the Hocus Pocus 2 palette. I don't have any of the other Hocus Pocus palettes, and I did regret never getting the first one because I thought the first one was really beautiful. I didn't like the second one, so I definitely wanted to pick up this one, and actually I'm so happy that I did because I think it's very interesting and really cohesive, and I like how it's laid out. I think it's just very easy to follow and figure out what kind of look you want to do. I've done a 3 looks 1 palette with this, and all 3 looks I thought were stunning, and I think the quality is good. I don't think it's the best quality from Colourpop, but I do think it's good. This is my only Colourpop palette where you have the bigger size pans as well. To be honest, I don't really notice a difference, but yeah, I just thought I'd point that out. I just think it's really beautiful, and I like the packaging, and I just wanted it, you know, obviously a limited edition, but I think I just wanted it to have it. I like Hocus Pocus. I'm not fanatical about it every Halloween. I'm also not fanatical about Halloween itself, but I appreciate the movie. I did grow up watching the movie, so I wanted to have this for that purpose as well. The second movie, not so much, not that interested in it. It wasn't very good. Okay, and then this is the last palette that I got. This is the newest one. And I'm hoping that this is the last one that I get from Colourpop for a long time, because I think I want to venture out and try other brands. I think I just have too much from Colourpop. But when the Aurora Struck came out, I kind of just needed it, and I actually bought this early December, so I got this before I knew I was going to get that Beauty Bay Midnight palette. So had I known I was going to get the Midnight palette from Beauty Bay prior to this, I probably wouldn't have bought this, because yes, the Midnight one is much more purple, and this has got greens in it and stuff, and it's a little bit more muted. They're very similar. They're both cool tone, and I don't need both of them. So that's a little bit of a bummer in terms of just me thinking, oh, do I really need it? Also, I do feel like I actually haven't filmed a video with this, I did film a video, but I didn't post it for whatever reason. I did a little get it ready with me, and I really did not care for how the shades looked or even felt. I feel like some of the shades were quite stiff, and I didn't like that, to be honest. I don't feel like this is the good Colourpop formula that I've been talking about. I haven't done a No Pan Left Behind. I haven't tried all the shades. I tried this one, Cosmic Ray, and I think the problem that I have with it is that they're very dry. And you know, going from Beauty Bay, where they're so creamy and delicious, I found these shades to be really dry and quite disappointing, if I'm honest. Like, look how dry this is. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell because you can't feel it, but I can feel it, and they're just really dry, and it's such a shame. And I think because they're so dry, I don't think they're going to last that long. in terms of, you know, if I keep this around for a good 2-3 years working on it, I don't think the quality of this is going to hold up, but hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully I do end up falling in love with it. But to be honest, I was really disappointed in the look that I created and how the shades performed. But I need to give it a little bit more love and some time, because I was so interested in it when I got it. Obviously that's why I bought it, but I think in hindsight it was a big dud for me. All right, next up I've got a brand here called Donna Beauty. I think this is just a very affordable drugstore brand here in Portugal. Not even in the drugstore, it's just a very cheapy brand. And I am going to declutter this from my collection, but just wanted to show you anyway. I was trying to work on this in my pan as eyeshadows, but I dropped the palette and it smashed everywhere. And I just really don't want the faff. All the product gets everywhere. I don't want to repress it. I don't want to spend the time on it. It's not a palette that I enjoy. So I am going to say goodbye to this, but it's still in my collection, so I wanted to just show you that I have it. Then we've got e.l.f. So I did have another e.l.f. palette, which was the Electric Mood palette, which was one of their collaborations, and it looked like this. It was one of these plastic like bigger pans, but I did end up depotting a lot of the shades, mostly the shimmer shades in this singles palette here. So let me just go through that first. So these shades here are all from the Electric Mood, and yeah, you can see I just kept the more interesting ones. To be honest, I didn't really want to keep this one, but at the time that I was depotting, I was working on this in one of my projects, so I thought I'll keep it. This one I've just hit pan in my pan as eyeshadow, so that is exciting. But otherwise, yeah, I do think these shades are really stunning from e.l.f. and they're very interesting. And to be fair, I mean, the rest of the palette was trash. Like the mattes in that palette were so hideous. So yeah, I think, oh my god, that middle shade is amazing. That middle shade is this one, Pound Coin, which I'm working on in my pan as eyeshadows. It definitely is one that I am very happy that I kept. Those other ones are a little bit lackluster, to be honest. But yeah, it's just I was trying to figure out what to do because I hated the palette. But I ended up keeping some of the shades. So that's that. And then I have these two. I've always liked e.l.f. Skincare and also makeup. I think this was the first e.l.f. palette that I actually picked up, but I have been using e.l.f. for a while before I was on YouTube. Just never their eyeshadow. So this was the first eyeshadow I picked up. This is also my Pan palette for the year, so you can see it's getting quite a lot of love. It's also been dropped a couple times. It's been beaten up. But I actually really like this. This is the Retro Paradise, and it was limited edition. I'm glad I picked it up because I feel like this color story was very interesting because it had just so much variety, and the shimmers were very beautiful as they still packed a punch. This shade over here is my favorite shade in the palette. It's called Parezzo. I don't know if it's going to perform as well as it used to because it is an old palette now. One of the reasons why I want to pan it, I am doing the Fantastic Ladies collab, Kicking It Old School. So you want to pan an old palette from your collection, and I thought this was perfect to do that for this year. But yeah, I really enjoy this, but you know, I can't really compare it to any other e.l.f. palettes of this size, as except for the Electric Mood, which I thought was trash. So I don't know if any of the other ones are good. And then I have one other bite size. I didn't pick up any of the other ones, and this is the Berry Bad, and I really enjoy it. I think it's cute. You know, you don't really need too much. It's a one and done look. I have taken it traveling with me, and it was very helpful to have. So I'm happy to have this. Alright, and then moving on, there is Essence. I only have one palette from Essence. I have almost purchased more palettes from Essence, but to be fair, I don't think the quality is very good from what I've tried. So I've always been a little bit thrown off and hesitant to do that. This is Out in the Wild, and they had a pink version and a green version. I liked this version more than the pink one. I just thought it was a little bit more interesting, and there are some nice taupey shades in here. I'm not gonna lie, they're not terrible, but I just don't think it's a very interesting palette. But you know, they're still beautiful. They're still workable. I mean, yeah, they're clearly beautiful. I don't know, maybe it's such an affordable drugstore brand. I don't want to make a mistake, because I know sometimes the palettes are so good and sometimes they're very disappointing. So for me, I'm not sure which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones, because it's kind of hit and miss from what I've seen, from what other people say. But there have been a lot of Disney palettes, I'm not going to lie, that I've wanted to pick up from Essence or Catrice, and I haven't yet done that, but maybe potentially, because they are a brand that are very accessible to me here in Portugal. Obviously being, you know, in Europe, they're much easier to get hold of, and there's more of a collection variety that I can get hold of, as opposed to when I was in the UK. There was really hardly anything you can get. And I don't know if they have all of their palettes available in the US either, so anyway, I only just have the one. All right, moving on to Huda Beauty. So I've got 3 of their bigger palettes here. I did decide not to pick up their latest one from autumn, or even the one from 2021. I just didn't feel like I needed them, because I've got these and obviously all the other palettes that I have in my collection. However, I have realized that I really enjoy the Huda Beauty formula. I do really think it's good. It's probably one of my favorites. I have heard that some people have had issues with like customer service and stuff like that. I've never had an issue like with shipping or anything like that, but I do think that they're probably not the best brand when it comes to helping their consumers in that way, just from personal stories that I've heard and other people, what they say online. However, I've never had a bad experience. Let's start with the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk. So this is the first one I got. I actually got it from TK Maxx for a really decent price, and it was the first time that I sort of tried the formula. I don't think this formula is as good as these other 2. However, I have used this palette quite a lot. It's been a lot of projects. I really enjoy the color story. I think it has a lot of variety, because you have the lighter tones over here and then you have the more richer tones over here, and I think there's more to play with. Had these not been so light, then I think it would have been like all one tone and all like mid-tone and a little bit boring. So for me, it works fine for my complexion and everything like that, and I think these shades are stunning. I really do enjoy Retrograde, but I feel like the quality is going, because whenever I swatch it, it just doesn't look as good. When I put it on the lid, it's fine. Twilight is also really beautiful, but I think also this one might be going as well. I just think the actual foam there is getting dry, and I got it at TK Maxx, so who knows how old it was before I had bought it anyway, so it's potentially a very old palette at this point. I know the palette itself is an old palette, but you know, I don't know how old this particular one and these formulas are. So you know, I've gotten as much love as I can out of it in the time that I've had, and I will continue to use it as much as I can until the formula goes completely, but I do think it's going with that one. And then these 2 I really enjoy. Sadly, I haven't used the Mercury Retrograde nearly as much as I would want to. I do think it's beautiful, but the way that I do my projects, it just hasn't rolled into any project. I've done a No Pan Left Behind, but I just don't think it's enough, because I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of this palette, and I just want to use it more. So I am actually working on this shade in a project, but I'm thinking, I think I'm going to have to do another No Pan Left Behind with this. I've already done one, but I just don't think I've used it enough, and I want to use it more. And I think it's interesting. I really love this shade. This shade is my favorite, and I had such a dip in it. I could hit pan very easily, but I just think it is gorgeous. And as opposed to this palette here, the shimmers in here aren't dry, they're creamy. So like I said, these 2 palettes definitely have better quality than that other one, and it might just be because she reformulated, or it might be just because the palette is old. The Naughty Nude I played around with a lot, because it's been in a lot of projects. I did a 3 Lips 1 palette, No Pan Left Behind, and then it was in my project Level Up. So I have definitely use this palette quite a bit. I did have to get rid of the slippery shade because it wasn't smelling very good, but I've hit pan into, because it was in my project level up in the level 2, so I had to hit pan into shades, which I did. And yeah, I really enjoy this palette. I do feel like there are some repeating tones in here, so I would have preferred something maybe a little bit different. Like, you don't really need these two. They are different, but to be honest, on screen they don't look different at all. And then you've got these two, which are very, very similar. They're different, but they're very, very similar. So you don't really need, like, there's a lot of repeating shades in here. And I wish that it had a little bit more variety or range in tone. But otherwise, I can't fault the formula. So yeah, really enjoy that. All right, moving on, we have Juvia's Place. I don't have any of the bigger palettes. These two I got before anything else. They did come in a bundle. I'm not gonna lie, I completely ignored this one for the last 3 years, but this one has gotten love out of me. This is the Bronze Rustic, and I just recently hit pan in this, which I'm really excited about. But otherwise, this palette is very beautiful. I have given it a lot of love, and I have really enjoyed it, and I do think the shimmers are so rich. I don't think it's the most interesting palette in the world, as if it didn't have this bright red blood orange shade, then it definitely wouldn't, but because it has that, I've always gravitated towards it. It was the first time me trying Juvia's Place, so I was quite pleased with it. And then, yeah, like I said, I've barely touched this one. This is the Blush Rose. I do have it in my Shop My Stash now. I am doing a no pan left behind, so I'm finally giving it the love that it deserves. So we'll see if you know, my feelings change about it. I will say, I tried this in the look the other day, and it was stunning. Stunning. So my thoughts on it have already changed. You know what it is? These shimmers are very dry. They don't feel the same as the other one, but they're very beautiful. So yeah, I'm slowly changing my mind about this palette. I just think I was very, very uninterested in it because of the color story. When I first got it, I was like, oh, that looks so blah, but actually the shimmers are really beautiful, if not a little bit stiff, and the mattes are fine. So yeah, don't love it, but don't hate it. And then I have these two. This one actually came with the bundle, was free with purchase. It is just the mini Nubian. Nothing special, just did a no pan left behind with this. I wouldn't miss it if it wasn't in my collection. It doesn't really add anything, but I have it. It's a small palette. It was free. Do I need it? No. And then this one I bought last September, which I really didn't need because I have the Mint to Be from Colourpop. This just gives me the same vibes, just gives me some minty shades. I will say these are beautiful, and I did swatch it in store, and I just couldn't help myself when I swatched it. I kind of just wanted it, so it was definitely an impulse buy. It is not a palette that I need in my collection, and obviously it's a companion palette. I don't really do one look with this. I did a no pan left behind, and I had to use other shades from other palettes to make a look that I enjoyed, but as a companion palette I think it's pretty. Do I need it? No. Okay, next up we've got Kaleidos. This is the only Kaleidos palette that I have, the Club Nebula palette. I did get it because I wanted to support Angelica, and I just, yeah, I wanted to get her first collab palette. I thought it was very beautiful, and I was just curious to see what it was like, and also it was a new brand for me to try. Now I will say I've gone through a journey with this. When I first got it I thought it was beautiful, I love the shimmers, but I did find that this side was very hard for me to work on because they are darker tones. I have since realized that I'm not as afraid as darker tones as I thought I was. I think that's what the problem was. I was very much afraid of tones like this, but I do find a place in them now when I do my makeup. I do find them useful, and I can't deny that these shades are so stunning. But then I also think these shades over here are also really beautiful as well. So yeah, I think just swatching that, it does feel like the formula is getting a little old, so I do want to give it a little bit more love. Like this one used to be a lot more impactful, so I don't know, did I just not swatch it properly? Yeah, that's a better swatch, there we go. I'm thinking maybe it's getting a little old, and I probably should give it a little bit more love. I mean, I did hit pan in these two last year, but it would be nice to have a little bit more love. I do have quite a nice dip in this shade, so it'd be nice to maybe get a couple more pans in here and use it more, because yeah, it's a special palette for me and I don't want to just not use it. Okay, next up we've got MAC. I've only got one MAC palette, which is the Star Sighting Compact in Fuchsia. This was a Christmas limited edition. I got this from my mum 7 years ago, maybe now. Very old time. Very long time ago. But I think it still performs okay. Yeah, it's still okay. I don't know. I mean, I can't really compare it to any other MAC shadows. I have a single shadow from MAC, but no other palettes. So I don't know what it's really like compared to what they release nowadays as well. But I am going to keep it around, obviously. I really do like it. I have a pan in it. This is a beautiful inner corner. These shades are really beautiful. And I think as an actual like little travel palette, it's great because you can do a couple different looks. It's not just a one tone look palette. You actually can do multiple looks with it. So I actually enjoy it. Okay, moving on, we've got My LA Beauty, which I've just got one palette from. This is discontinued and the brand no longer exists, but I did find them on Instagram and I know that they were a brand prior to being My LA Beauty. I don't recall the name, but yeah. I picked this up and I actually think it's stunning. I really, really think this is so beautiful. I love these two shades over here. And I think if I ever got rid of this palette, I would have to depot those shades because they're just so stunning. But the green is really beautiful too. This is a very interesting shade. It's like this, oh my gosh, look at that. That is so gorgeous. Yeah, this is very highly underrated, but sadly gone. So, you can't really buy it, you can't get it anywhere. So, but I'm very happy to have it. It does definitely feel like indie quality makeup to me, which it was. I will say that these mattes are very, 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 very hard pressed, very, very pigmented. So, like for instance, this trunk shade, I've used a good 30 plus times. And there's literally no dip. They will last forever until they don't. But the shimmers for me and the color story is what makes this very interesting, and obviously the packaging is very nice as well. So definitely one of my favorite palettes that I own. And then I have one palette from Nabla. This is the Dreamy. I have been eyeing up some other palettes from Nabla because I do think that they're formula is so good. This for me is not my favorite color story of all time. However, it did rank very high when I did a palette ranking last year. I think it was #1 when I did like my last 3 months palettes, which is my favorite. I fell in love with the quality. I think this formula is very similar to the good ABH formula. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's just so stunning. So yeah, that alone, it just makes me fall in love with it. I think there's a good variety of shimmers to mattes in here. I don't particularly like this shade over here. I think this would be the dud shade of the palette. It's just kind of ugly. It's that sort of black tone shimmer that I don't know who likes those types of shades. Not me, but everything else is beautiful. So yeah, that would be the only thing that I would change because it's so stunning. Okay, so I've got 2 palettes from NARS. This one I'll start with because it is the first palette that I got, and I've had it for a good 2.5 years, almost 3 years now. This is the Afterglow palette. It is really beautiful and I have always thought it was stunning. I did get it on offer because I do find these palettes quite expensive. So when it was on offer, I did purchase it from John Lewis when I lived in the UK. And I think this shade in particular is definitely my favorite shade, although this shimmer I think over here is also very beautiful. I just love it. I just love it. Every time I use it, I'm reminded of how beautiful it is. And maybe I'm just a simple person, but I just love these shimmers. I think the quality is great. And I think the mattes perform fine. They're not my favorite quality, but I think as a color story, it's very cohesive as well. And you have the pop of pink, which normally I wouldn't really care for, but I think it works in this palette. So I've always really loved this palette and I think the packaging is stunning. So very happy with that. And then this is the newest one. I got this for Christmas. This is the Stargaze palette. not gonna lie, I don't really like the packaging. I did like the color story, so obviously it's something that I wanted to get, and I'm glad that I got it. I've only tried it the one time though, so I do want to play around with it a little bit more. What I do think is, I feel like the shades in this palette took me a while to like break into. I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes the shimmers can feel a little bit dry and then they get more emollient the more you use them, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that happens with this palette, because so far I do feel like the quality is not as good as the Afterglow palette, but we'll just have to wait and see. Like, I just don't, I think, yeah, they're a lot more dry than I would like. Still beautiful, but just a little bit more dry and a little bit harder to work with. And obviously it is much darker as well. So I gotta be in the mood for this one. I'm not gonna lie, it's not my favorite palette at the moment, but I'm hoping that I fall in love with it because it was expensive, it was a gift, I did want it. But now that I have it, I realize it might not be the best. All right, now we have Natasha Denona, and shock horror, I only have one. I have not been a collector of Natasha Denona simply because the price is just so expensive. I just can't bring myself to do it. I do think this is beautiful quality. This is the retro palette, and I do know why everyone loves Natasha Denona, or most people do. Is she overhyped? I think somewhat, yes. I think all of her little £5 palettes are very, very expensive for what they are. However, obviously I haven't tried them, so I'm just basing it off my opinion. However, there are some really beautiful shades in here. I do think these two shimmers are kind of unnecessary. I think Psychedelic is gorgeous, but then you've got this other one which is very similar in a sense. And yeah, I don't know. I really like this palette, but I think there's something that stops me from saying it's my favorite. And I don't know if it's because of the price tag. You know, whenever something is really expensive, you kind of want to be wowed, and I don't think I was wowed. I just was like, oh yeah, this is good, but I wasn't wowed. So I think there's a difference. But yeah, it's pretty, you know. I don't know what to say about it. I don't know if I'm going to buy any more from Natasha Denona unless she comes out with a color story that is significantly different to what she's been releasing, because I haven't really found anything interesting, and because I had those palettes from Alter Ego, which obviously are dupes of some of the Natasha Denonas, but they're obviously half the price. That just makes me a little bit happy inside. So I don't know. I think it depends on what she releases and how I'm feeling at the time. Lately, I haven't really been interested in her eyeshadow, but I do like her cheap products, and I'm more interested in those and what she releases next with those. All right, then we have Nomad. So Nomad Cosmetics is getting very popular at the moment in like the YouTube world. I'm seeing a lot more creators talk about them. When I purchased from Nomad, I purchased a little bundle, and I got these two years ago. Hardly anyone was talking about it, so I felt kind of pleased with myself that I was reaching out, going to an indie brand and buying from an indie brand. But now I feel like a lot of the bigger creators, when I say bigger, like 100K plus subscriber creators, they're talking about Nomad. They're getting Nomad palettes for free, and I think that's great. I think it's great that the brand is getting more recognition, like from a lot more people, and they do seem to be releasing a lot more palettes lately as well, which I'm noticing, which is great. They're obviously getting more money. They're able to do that. I've always really enjoyed that their palettes have all been themed around places that they visited. I think that's really cool, and I like the packaging of all of them. So yeah, I got these two in a bundle, and I wanted to try the brand out, and at the time I was in the UK. So again, I wanted to get a bundle because I would have to pay quite a lot for shipping and everything like that. So this is the Cartagena Magica palette, and I really like this. I have 2 pans in here. This, for me, is probably my favorite out of the 3 palettes that I have, although it's one of the, it's not my most used palette. Tokyo is much more used than this one because it's been in projects, but this is very, very stunning. I really love this shade, which I have a pan in, but I think also a lot of these other shades are very stunning, and I really want to give more love to it this year because I am neglecting it quite a bit, but they're just absolutely gorgeous. And I wouldn't say Nomad is very pricey in terms of, you know, obviously if you live in the US, I don't think it's that pricey because you just pay for the palette if you can get some free shipping and stuff, but it does get pretty pricey if you're paying for shipping and palettes and whatnot. So I did buy these as a bundle and they were slightly discounted. Anyway, so this is the Tokyo palette, and I have I have 4 pans in here, all from projects. I've got 2 pans in these ones, this one and this one. This one I don't think has the best quality in terms of actually the 3 palettes that I own. I think it probably has the worst hard pan that I've ever seen in any palette that I own, with obviously the shimmers. Every time I use them I get hard pan, and I am the type of person that likes to use my fingers in palettes, and a lot of shimmers don't get hard pan when I use them, but these do. So I guess just bear that in mind. Obviously if you use a brush it's probably not as bad, but I do have to scrape off a lot of the hard pan when I use it just to get the pigmentation. But a lot of these aren't what they seem. They either are duochromes or they have a little bit of flip of something. Like this one's got a flip of, look at that, you can see it's got some pink to it. This one's like, I guess, just a beautiful shimmer, and then this is a green. I don't know if you're going to see, but it has a flip of blue to it. So very interesting shimmers there. Don't swatch the greatest because there is quite a bit of hard pan on them right now. But one of the things that I do like about this palette is because it has a lot of pastels, and I don't have many pastels in my collection, if any, really. Like this is like probably my most pastel leaning palette that I own, and I do like that, so that's kind of why I've kept it around, even though the quality hasn't been the best. And the fact that I've used it so much, I actually have grown to really appreciate it. And then this is my newest one from them. This is the Fête de Provence. I just thought this was very pretty, and with all of the new releases that they've come out with, I do think this is the reason I grabbed this. It just kind of, I don't know, I liked it more. And I have noticed that they do really nice yellow shimmers just based on these previous palettes. So this had these pops of yellow, and I just liked that it had a gradient of color in here. I'm not gonna lie, this is not my favorite out of the 3. I put in a lot of effort into this palette, and I just don't, I don't know, I just find that these mattes are a little bit dry. Actually, maybe not. Oh my god, that was a terrible swatch. Actually, that red one's all right, but this is a terrible color, this one. I'm just trying to get some pigment out of it. I don't know. I'm not as in love with this as I thought I was going to be. I think the shimmers are pretty, but again, they're getting that hard pan, and I think I was just disappointed in that, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. And the reason why this is my favorite is I just don't have that issue with the shimmers in terms of the hard pan. I really don't. So I do think this is my favorite out of the 3. But I do like the brand, and I like that they're getting recognition. I just hope that it doesn't get a little bit overwhelming, and I hope that all of these creators aren't just saying that they love it because they're getting free stuff. Hey, so sometime later my camera ran out of battery. Okay, so next brand is the Odin's Eye. Or Odin's Eye. I don't know why I said the. I've got 3 palettes from Odin's Eye. I almost picked up the newest collaboration that they did with the 3 YouTube creators, but I just haven't, and I think because I was burned so hard on these. Now, I do believe everyone when they say that their newer palettes have better quality than their older palettes. I have obviously older palettes, so you know I can only go by what I see. I have the Alva here, which I was so excited to get, but I do think that the quality isn't the best, and yeah, it's made me very hesitant to buy from Odin's Eye. And the reason why I haven't bought anything from them, I got this in a mystery box. I was very excited to because I really actually wanted this palette anyway. But I do find that the shimmers are a little bit, actually quite a bit lackluster. The mattes are fine. A lot of people say they love the shimmers and don't like the mattes. I'm the opposite. I just don't find these shimmers all that interesting. But I do believe everybody when they say that the formula is better. I'm still hesitant. And then I have these 2 palettes. These also came in mystery box. So I've got the Alva 2 Mini Ocean palette. and this one I really wanted to like, and I mean, it's okay, it's good. But I do find that this shimmer in particular is a little dry. This one is very pretty, and the other sort of regular shimmers are fine, and I do like the pop of blue, but I am disappointed in this special pan right here. So it's not the best quality, and then this one, the Verdandi, has a better quality than the other two. These two are stunning. They perform great. They're nice and creamy. And this looks like a blue, but it's not a blue, so that's very interesting. It's actually more of this, I don't know, kind of icy yellow. The sun is behind the clouds today, and it is very dark, so hopefully this video is not super dark. But yeah, it's a beautiful shade. It's not a blue shade. You'd think it was, but it's not. And then this is beautiful too. So these are very creamy as opposed to that other palette, so I do like those. Not my favorite color story, but I think the actual formula is really good in this palette. So those are the 3 Own's Eye that I have. I may or may not get more and try more. I mean, I'm very tempted by the 2 of the palettes out of the 3 that came out. I really like Batty Bean, but I find her palette just too colorful for me. But the other 2 palettes, I mean, are beautiful, and I do like all of the creators as well. So I might potentially dabble. I've been humming and ahhing, and I'm sure that they're going to be discontinued soon and obviously sold out eventually. So I don't have too long to decide on that. Okay, next up I've got Pastel Roses. So these are technically singles, and I haven't been showing you singles, but they are in their own palette, so I am going to show you. And I bought these all together. I am working on these 2 in projects. This is in, actually they're both in my Pan Nose eyeshadows, but otherwise, yeah, they're just gorgeous shimmers. This is probably my favorite, and the texture in this one is so good. It's so creamy. I do find some of the others are a little bit dry, and I don't know, I'm a little bit hesitant to dive into them too much, but they actually, this is very creamy, this one. They all swatch beautifully. Actually, I can't deny. Some of them are a little bit flaky, like this one is very flaky and very textured, but gosh, look at that. Like, they really pack a punch. So yeah, if I'm gonna have singles and spend the money for singles, I want them to be special like this, and these are pretty special, so I'm happy about that. Moving on, we've got Pixie. I've just got the 1 eyeshadow, and I don't imagine I'll buy anything else in terms of eyeshadow from Pixie. I just don't think the formula is the best. From what I've tried from all these other brands and what I have already in my collection, this color story is also very, very bland. I did a No Pan Left Behind recently on this, and to be honest, it was just so boring using this palette. So there's nothing inherently wrong with the palette, I just find it dull, and I think it's a little bit all too of the same tone. It's very much mid-tone. Even the darker shades aren't that dark, and you've just got this one lighter shade, which is kind of a blur shade, because it's not even a light shimmer. Like, why didn't they just put inner corner highlighting shimmer there instead of just a general like matte beigey, you know, color? It's kind of pointless for me. So yeah, not the best palette. This is the Heart Defensor palette. Okay, and then we have Primark. I did have one other palette from Primark, but it is gone. I ended up depotting it, but yeah, we'll talk about that. So let's talk about my oldest one first, which is the Rose Quartz. I got this, I want to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It's pretty old at this point, but she's going strong. She's got some pans in it, and to be honest, the formula has never been the greatest, so I'm not really going to talk about the formula, but I don't think it's gotten worse over the years. So I still think it performs the same way that it's always performed. So I appreciate that. And I know what it is, it's Primark, it's not the best. But I do like this color story, and there's something about this palette that is nostalgic to me. So I do like that. And then I think, what is the next one? I might have got these all kind of at similar times. Maybe I got the Sunset Beach before those, I'm not entirely sure. So this one, I want to say is they're trying to copy the Tarte palette. I can't remember the the name of the palette, but the color story is very similar. It's kind of like a dupe. But I've never tried Tarte Formula. I'm sure it's much better than Primark. I do like this. This is a very, very warm tone, but the shimmers are actually not that bad. You do get a little hard pan in them. They're not, you know, they're not anything to shout about, but I don't think they're terrible. I mean, look at that. For Primark, I really don't think that is terrible, especially this shade here. It's a little thin, but it's still beautiful, and the mattes perform fine. So yeah, I actually have no complaints about this palette. Okay, and then I got these two. I did have a third one. I had a pink one, which I depotted, and then eventually I just got rid of the shade that I depotted because it wasn't special enough. Obviously, they're trying to dupe the Huda Beauty Neon 9 pans. The one that I really was attracted to when I purchased it was the green one, and then I saw they had an orange and a pink one, so I picked up the other two. So the green one I find very interesting, just in terms of the colors and the shades. The quality in this is really not very good at all, but I really enjoy I don't know, the different colors. Like, you've got this really strange yellow. I mean, look at that. That's so strange. And then you've got this really pukey, greeny yellow. You can see how powdery it is. Very, very powdery, but the colors are actually kind of unique. So that's the only reason why it's still here and why I haven't got rid of it, because of the unique shades. But the formula itself is not good at all, and even compared to the other Primark palettes, it is not good. This one is currently in my shop, my stash. I'm trying to do a no pan left behind with it. And I actually really enjoyed it the other day. I paired it with the Berries palette from Beauty Bay, and I'll put on the screen the look that I created. But I used some of these shades for that look, and I was pleasantly surprised. And I used this as an inner corner highlight, and it's not that bad. So as much as I've given this a lot of hate, this one in terms of formula is not as bad as the green one, and I do like both of the color stories quite a bit. So I'm happy that I didn't end up depotting these and ruining them, because I was going to do that, but I've kept them as they are, and I've realized that I'm very, very pleased with that. And then the last palette that I have from Primark is the newest one. I got this back in September. And this is what it looks like. It's just the Untamed Panther, and I really liked the color story. Again, it's trying to copy the Huda Beauty range that they came out with, like this. And I don't know, it's not the best. The pan sizes are also very small, in my opinion, but it's not the worst. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm not gonna get rid of it. That's kind of, this is a very dark shade, but it has a little bit of green to it. I don't know, it's honestly a very workable palette. I do like the grungier sort of cool, like, I don't know, color story of it. So I'm gonna keep it around. There's nothing wrong with it for what it is. It's a Primark palette, and it cost me like, what, £3? So all right, moving on, we have Makeup Revolution. I did have 4 palettes from Makeup Revolution. When I talk about Makeup Revolution, I talk about all of the sister brands as well. So these are all in particular from the actual Revolution brand, but I did have a 4th one from the Makeup Obsession sort of sub brand that they had, but I have depotted that. And most of the shades are in my singles palettes. I already showed you this, but all of these round shades over here are from the LA Dreams palette from Makeup Revolution. To be honest, it was the first time that I was depotting and, you know, kind of like breaking apart one of my palettes, and it was more of a project and sort of a try for me. I don't feel the need to really hold on to these that much longer. I mean, I haven't done anything with them. I haven't decluttered them or anything, but I don't know if they're worth saving. Just based on all of the shades that I have now in my collection, they're not very unique anymore. So I have those. And then the oldest out of these is this one, the Chilled palette. I just really liked the color story, and I saw Steph Lyons was working on it at the time, so I really wanted it. It was a couple of years ago now. And I've got some pans in it, and honestly, it's not the best quality. I know some people have bought it and be like, oh, I don't like this quality. Why do people talk about it? I agree with you. It's not the best, and it has 3 glitter shades that are absolutely atrocious. You've got this one, this one, and this one, right? Yes, I'm looking at it in the viewfinder. So yeah, I agree, it's not the best quality, but you do have this shade, which is a really nice creamy shade, and this is also a nice creamy shade as well. So you have a little bit of difference in terms of texture. So I will give it that. Also, I think some of the greens are pretty nice in terms of tone. You do have So Dope, which I've hit pan on and I've used quite a bit, and I quite like how grungy that is. But I also think that Plant is a nice shade too. It's more of this lighter green. And look, it's Makeup Revolution. What do you kind of expect? You're not going to expect the best quality, but I think I really like the color story. I like the packaging, and I have gotten a lot of use out of it. So for that reason, you know, I just enjoy it. Okay, these two palettes are pretty new. I got them both at the same time last year, or around the same time last sort of summer, end of summer time. Let's start with this one. This is the Hydra Turtle. First off, I really like the packaging, and that's kind of sold me when it first came out, and I was like, no, I don't need it. And then months later, I finally got it. This quality is not as good as the Chilled palette in terms of a variety of texture. There's no difference in texture in these shimmers. They're all kind of the same. The mattes are the same. There's just nothing interesting in this palette in terms of the formula, which is a shame. If they had added one or two of those creamy shades in here, that would have been great. Obviously don't want a glitter shade, but if they had done something different, that would have been more interesting. I think for me, the color story is a little bit confusing in the way that it's laid out, and I feel like there's a lot of mid-tones in here, and again, I don't know what it is. I find it confusing. I've done a no pan left behind with it. I've used every single shade. I kind of know how it all performs. Some of the mattes are pretty, they skip on the lid, so they're pretty patchy and not easy to blend out. So if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and it looks pretty terrible, and I'm not the best at doing my makeup, so let's be honest. So as much as I like the packaging, it's a regret purchase for mine because I don't really enjoy it that much. And then we've got the Batman Dangerous in Love, which is very it's a very neutral leaning, subtle palette, very subtle. Almost you got the black, but you haven't really got too much depth in this. And I kind of liked it for that. It was very subdued, and I kind of wanted that. And I don't mind it. And actually, I think I prefer it to the Hydra Turtle because of the wearability. I can wear it a lot easier than I can the Hydra Turtle. But again, do I need it in my collection? No. Are there any special shades? No, there aren't. So it was unnecessary to purchase, but I have it, so you know. Okay, moving on, we have Sample Beauty. I just have the one, the Equalizer 2. I have the Equalizer Volume 2. I wanted this palette for a good 2 years before I purchased it. It was always going on and off on sale at Beauty Bay, and I finally took the plunge and bought it, and I'm so happy that I did because I really, really like it. And I think it has so much variety, and these shimmers, a lot of them are a little bit of duochromes. You know, there's a little bit of flip between them. The mattes are really easy to use, and then obviously you've got the white and the black, you've got a shimmery white and black, and I don't know, the only redundant shades that I would say is there's quite a lot of purple here, and I don't think you need all of this purple. I think a lot of it is kind of the same tone, and maybe, I don't know, maybe one of these two ones should have been a slightly different color, and then these shouldn't, like these shimmers are very, very, very similar. So maybe something more periwinkly, purpley, like something blue toned would have added that extra pop. Even though it doesn't really go with the rest of the color story, I think that would have been better for me. But this is a beautiful shade. This is Sweet, and it's gorgeous. It's just a gorgeous shade. I don't know if any of these are gonna pop on screen, because I noticed when I did it last time they did not pop on screen, but they're very beautiful in person, and they're a little bit thin, but honestly I think they do pack a punch on the lids, and I very much enjoy it. And you can go very grungy with some of these greens up here that kind of lean more like brownie green. You can go more grungy, and then especially with these mustards over here, you got obviously all the neutrals that you can need. And yeah, I kind of love this palette, really. All right, next up, I've just got She Glam. This is the only She Glam palette that, She Glam palette that I have. Speaking too much. It does come with the glitter shade, which I had not realized it was a glitter shade when I purchased it, which was a shame. I thought this was just going to be like a special sort of shimmer, but what was I thinking? I mean, it's She Glam. It's you pay for what you get. But I really like the pukey green tones of this palette. This is the Virgo, and I'm a Virgo, so I thought if I'm going to try anything from She Glam, I'll try this one. To be honest, it's like the same quality as Primark, I would say. So, you know, for what you pay for is kind of what you get. So, you know, you're not going to expect this type of palette to be the same as Natasha Denona, Huda Beauty, Beauty Bay, you know, anything like that, because it's just simply, even though Beauty Bay is affordable, this one is cheaper. So yeah, I like the packaging, but I don't feel the need to buy any more from She Glam, just based on everything I know about it. And also, you know, it's kind of the same as Primark, so, you know, I should stop buying from Primark. Why am I going to buy from another brand that's kind of like the same quality? I need to stop buying from, like, fast fashion, fast makeup brands, basically. Okay, moving on, we've got Sigma Corda Rosa. So this one was a huge disappointment to me, and the only reason that I don't have more Sigma palettes is because of this palette. I wanted this palette for a good 1.5 years before I purchased it. I finally purchased it. I think it was a 20% sale, so, you know, they're pretty pricey, so I didn't want to, you know, buy a bunch of them and not like them. So I thought, okay, let me buy this one. It's the one that I like the color story the most of. And I'm just very disappointed with the shimmers, that you can see what type of shimmer formula it is. I wouldn't even know what to call it, but I guess dry is the word that comes to mind. They're not creamy, they're dry, they're thin. And had this been a £20 palette, then I've been like, okay, fine, even a £30 palette, but it's, you know, this is pricey and it's overhyped from so many people, Sigma, and I don't like that. So I don't know, I find it very hard to work with this. This shade also doesn't even show up on my skin. It is terrible, it's such a dud shade, and that's literally a shade of the palette called Rosa. There are some nice mattes, like this is a nice matte, and I don't think I have an issue with any other mattes but this matte, and I do like Campfire. This shimmer is different to the others. This one is creamy and does pack more of a punch, but these, I mean, okay, you can tell me, yeah, okay, maybe they're supposed to be topper shimmers, so that's why they're thinner, but they're so dry, and you can have a topper that's not that dry. I'm sorry, I don't know, I just found this so disappointing, and I really gave it a lot of love, and I still don't love it, so it's a shame. Okay, then I have this little quad from Sophia Maybell. This is the Aphrodite palette. If memory serves me right, the recommended retail price for this is £25, which is absolutely ridiculous. I got it in a beauty box, but that's what they were telling us. The quality is not there for a £25 palette, especially for 4 shades from a brand that nobody knows. I don't know, I mean, yeah, it kind of reminds me of Makeup Revolution Primark quality. It's not that interesting. I have enjoyed the palette while I've used it. I've never had any issues with it. And some of these, like these shimmers have been beautiful in looks, but are they the best? No. All right, then I've got Sosu by Sosu Jackson. I've just got the one palette from her. This is the Azure Allure palette. Now, when I bought this, I did not have any of these jewel tones in my collection, so I thought I want to have these in my collection. Now, these are very dark. They're very dark, and I also have a lot of these shades now in my collection, other palettes, so this palette is not as necessary for me to have. However, the only reason I have kept this palette around is really because of this shade. This gemstone shade is just absolutely stunning, and I cannot say goodbye to it. I think even maybe these shimmers are also pretty good, but that green is just divine, and I can't say goodbye to them. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't like the mattes. The mattes are very dry. They're pigmented, but they're extremely dry and hard pressed, and that's just not my favorite type of matte to use. So the mattes do let it down, but the shimmers are gorgeous. So if I did ever want to depot some palettes, this this is definitely one of the ones that I would do, and I would keep the shimmers. All right, moving on, we've got Urban Decay. I only have 2 palettes from Urban Decay, and this is the only naked palette I have ever owned, and obviously it is the original, and I got it back when it like, I wouldn't say, I think maybe a few months after it came out, so this is a very, very old palette. I did get it as a gift, and I'm very pleased with it. The formula still is pretty good. I don't think it's gone bad, so that's pretty impressive. It's a neutral lover's dream, but it is what it is, right? There's nothing interesting about this, and they're very hard to hit pan on. I will say that. But I have 2 pans. I really love Sin, and I do like Toasted and Sidecard. I would say those would all be my favorite out of this. Not a fan of Creep. It's just one of those black with like glitters in it, but yeah, I still have this. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it, even when the formula goes bad. Why should I don't know. It's just, you know, it's a classic. How can I get rid of it? All right, and then moving on, we've got this one, the Stone Vibes. Love this. I had to have it when when I saw the packaging, I was like, I have to have that. And then I'm so happy that I got it, because I was silly and I listened to so many negative reviews. So I got this for Christmas, and like, I don't know, years ago, whenever it came out, because obviously this is a limited edition, and then I tried it and I liked it, and then I saw so many negative reviews, it shifted my view on it. I thought, oh no, actually no, maybe it's not as good as I think it is, and then I just carried on using it over the years, and it honestly is, it's so good, and I just wish I just kept to my guns. Obviously, I have 3 pans in here. I really, really like it. I love this Bloodstone. That won't come as a surprise because you saw all the ones that I was swatching at the start of the video. I love all those tones, but I really like these ones. I like Vibes, which I have a pan on. I think that's a beautiful pinky purple. Opal Oral is probably, I think, my favorite in the palette, and it's just so gorgeous and so creamy. I like Raw Energy, I like Meditate. I don't really pull for Jade and Ojo, just they're a little bit darker, but I'm sure I will eventually start using those. It'd be nice to have pans in all of them, but I really like how loved it is. I don't mind, I don't know how it looks. I really like how, I like makeup when it looks like that person actually likes that makeup. I don't like having makeup that doesn't look loved. All right, and then the last brand that I have is from W7. So this is On The Rocks. It is a dupe for the Subculture. Well, that's what they tried to do. I've never tried Subculture, but I imagine being ABH, the quality is much better, although I know a lot of people had issues with the quality from Subculture. I imagine it is 100 times better than this regardless. But I got it because I liked the color story. It was very affordable at the time, and I hadn't tried W7, so I wanted to try W7. So I'm glad I have it. I do enjoy it because of the color story alone. The 2 shimmers in here are very lackluster. Yeah, this one obviously packs more of a punch than this Champagne Toast, which has a pretty bad hard pan at the moment. Yeah, I can't fault the mattes, if I'm honest. I think the mattes are pretty good, but it is what it is. It's like a Primark quality, maybe even worse than Primark in some of those Primark palettes. I don't know. It is fine. So that is my eyeshadow palette collection. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I would like to expand the brands that I try this year. I don't want to keep purchasing from ColourPop and purchasing from all these brands that I've already tried if I don't need to. I think I'm much more interested in trying indie brands this year in particular, and just formulas that I haven't necessarily tried but I've heard are very, very good. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to. I will be doing makeup collection, the rest of my makeup, so all my face bases and cheeks and all that jazz. I'll do that in a separate video. This is a very, very long video. I'll try to condense it down, but I think it's going to be very, very long. And I hope everyone's well. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!